a gear in the corner this time. I think that was there the last time.
Really?
Some kind of star gear.
I think it was like a square.
Wasn't it a square?
There was just a plain circle. There was a dodecahedron.
Yeah, well, I never know. Now it's a gear. But it's recording and counting down from 3 hours. So we got plenty of time.
That's right. To incredible thoughts.
Welcome, listeners of the internet and World Wide Web. This is the Pretend Podcast. I'm Gavin.
And I'm Craig.
And you're here with us. Welcome to our new show. We're kicking it off tonight for you guys. This is the Pretend Podcast that is no longer pretend.
It is really happening, where we are going to assign each other a handful of tasks or research each week, and then report back to you, the listener.
Yeah, we're just two dudes. You know, maybe we missed some stuff along the way. We say we've been buddies how long now?
Since like 4th of July.
Well, geez, must have been 2009.
Yeah, I think you might have sparklered yourself.
Yeah.
Or Roman candled yourself.
Was it a 4th of July?
I think we had Thanksgiving dinner and there were fireworks. So in my mind,
it was definitely
some kind of a holiday.
Yeah. It's been a while. Just take our word for it.
That's right.
But, we share a lot of common interests, but at the same time, we're like, we've been on this planet a good chunk now. Maybe we missed some stuff along the way. So we thought
Absolutely.
A fun way, because we thought of many ways to approach this show. We knew we wanted to do a show where we just talk to each other and share it with the world. But we're like, what is the best format for this? And we figured it would be cool if we kind of just dug up things based on themes usually. Sometimes we don't have a theme, but sometimes we do.
Sometimes.
We just kind of assign these things, like such as movies or albums that tend to be popular ones, but a little everything, beers even. So
yeah,
we figured it'd be a good way for us to kind of do reviews, but more just share some memories and thoughts on it. We're not really like critics by any means. I wouldn't call myself a critic, would you?
No. And we did not grow up together, so there's a whole lot of sort of trading sort of childhood
lost years,
experiences, and because we have a lot of similar tastes, but not the same experience.
Exactly, yeah. So it'll be interesting to take this journey with you guys, and we hope you are on board too. We're in Western North Carolina, just to give you a base idea of where we're coming from. So now it all makes sense. These two assholes are from Western North Carolina.
Drunken idiots.
So, in the Asheville area. So we're eager to share these ideas with you. Like you said, we're just kicking this thing off, so bear with us. That
we'll muddle through. We'll figure it out.
Make some adjustments as we go, but we're anxious to hear your opinions on these topics too, since a lot of these are beloved movies or widely hated movies and albums and such. A lot of the arts. Yeah, so everyone's going to have opinions. So we figured since themes are a big part of the show that you are about to partake on this journey with us, but we figured what would be a good theme for the first one.
And that theme was debuts, firsts.
Yeah, firsts.
And as a first, here's the sound you'll hear regularly on this podcast.
Ooh, is that your first beer ever?
Yes. Yeah, it happens to be a PBR. I hope it's good.
All right. Well, there we go. We'll see what happens. He'll be a full-blown alcoholic by the end of this episode.
A sloppy, horrible drunk.
And, so first, our debuts, and we were like, well, you don't want to do the super obvious, like my first, movie, my first this and that.
My first girlfriend.
Yeah,
that would
it gets real heavy real quick. So it's a little scattered, like a lot of these. It leaves room for us to come back and grab some more first. But another thing we would like to do is just kind of lay out the table of contents for you guys. You might not be sold on us yet, but maybe you like one of these movies. Maybe you like one of these albums. So if you're on board, maybe let's hear what we got. Craig, you got the menu in front of you?
I do. So this week's homework, our first week's homework, Gavin assigned to me a movie called The Eagle Has Landed.
Ooh, that's a serious film.
That is a World War II sort of historical fiction
Yes,
film.
true story.
We can get into the particulars later. I believe you assigned it because it was the first VHS rental.
Yes, first rental VHS. A pairing. Star Wars was the other one, but I don't want to come out blazing with it.
Yeah, that's maybe a little. I suspect there's a few podcasts.
Yeah, Star Wars will get it will get its due. Don't worry. It'll come up. But
the B-52s. The album title is
Cosmic Thing.
Yes. First concert.
First concert. Yes.
And the Muppet Show, which was your first love.
Yeah. Oh, the Muppets.
And would you like to introduce
Sure,
the list
Craig.
that I gave to you?
Turn the tables on me with The Man with Two Brains from 1983, starring Steve Martin. Classic film.
Yes.
And labeled as why? What? First?
It was the first time I ever saw boobs.
First boobs.
Yeah.
You can't deny
So
that.
that's a classy choice.
There you go.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was in my head, but when I sat down, I was like,
This is
first.
the
First.
Wow.
And it literally was just like, whoosh!
Yeah.
First boobs. Man with two brains. I haven't seen it in 20 years at least.
Wow.
But I watched it the other night.
The boobs hold up.
Still boobs. They are
Still in
boobs.
there. Yeah, that's the director's cut. And
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So Man with Two Brains, starring Steve Martin. Then we did another concert one. Lenny Kravitz. Are you gonna go my way?
Woo.
First concert.
Yeah, my first concert.
So I figured we'd take a look at that whole album,
1992,
which
I
I'm
think
sure
it was 93.
93 is when the album came out. Yeah, so I'm sure he played a lot of those hits.
Yeah, he did.
Can't wait to hear about that. And with the finale choice of the Avengers, the comics. And you gave me a hefty stack of them from episode, or what do you call them? Issues. Clearly a comic guy. So issue 274, and I wrote the last one down that I made it through was 281, so I didn't read the whole stack, but I think
it was probably more than you needed. But
it was good, yeah.
What was at hand?
I was plugging away there, and roughly the era that I was closest to my comic book. Like I definitely recognized a lot of it. 87, I think it was. Yeah, so these all came out around 87. I might have been a little before this. Like we had subscriptions and stuff to a few comics, and always got into them a little bit, but not huge. But so we got some comic talk.
That's right.
So much cool stuff.
There's just things from across the arts and entertainment world for your digestive pleasure.
So diverse.
Yes.
What is these?
What are these two cornballs? What are these apple wagons up to?
Just sitting around wearing our smoking jackets.
That's right.
In the
we are very affluent.
in the den.
Yeah.
So shall we begin?
Let's do it. We're going to kick it off with the movies, right?
Yeah, the cinemas. The arts of the film, the talkies.
Yes.
But you want to, maybe we'll start with the boobs. That's always a good
Man
place
with Two Brains. So I assigned Gavin, we already said it, but The Man with Two Brains, Steve Martin, 1983. And when we decided, okay, we're going to record the first one, and what's the theme going to be? Sort of debuts. I think we both sort of independently, and I think this will happen a lot as we move forward. Like surprisingly, we don't always like really do a lot of advanced thought in the theme itself. We do our research once that happens, but like we don't always like say, what do you mean debut? And I think we just sort of independently arrived at first
of something
for our first, because it easily could have been, the first Sherlock Holmes story,
or Steve Martin's first movie,
like Kurt Russell's first movie or whatever. But we chose personal firsts, and I had no idea it was even in my brain. And as it turns out, I have had very little recollection of the film itself. But it just was like, it just like popped into my head, and I was like, wait a second, that's a great first. The first time I saw boobs.
So, not on TV then. When did you, was it a rental?
I saw it, it was a VHS rental at like a neighbor kid's house, because my parents never would have rented that. That's why.
Awesome.
And I just remember thinking, that's a bit all right. So
it's about 9, maybe. When did this? Let's see. It came out 83.
83. I was born. Yeah, it was about 9.
9ish. Yeah. Seems like a good age.
Yeah, that's like an appropriate move age, right? You'd let a 9-year-old neighbor kid see boobs at your house.
I can't even imagine what the first. Yeah, my
like,
mind would have been like.
Now that we're actually recording it, and some people we know and other people we don't will consume it, I feel
it's
like
the first
kind
right
of
out the gate.
Yeah, but I mean, I was just like,
it's a very pivotal moment in the young boy's life.
I was like, boobs, those are okay.
Yeah, were you a big Steve Martin fan going in there? Or you just kind of like?
I knew him from he had a sort of a comedy music album.
Yeah.
I had an 8-track with Funky Tut on it. Are you familiar?
Yes. Yeah. King Tut.
Yeah, King Tut.
Yeah. Eventually took the Saturday Night Live and stuff.
Yeah, so, and I knew him from Two Wild and Crazy Guys. And that sort of thing.
He's
and I
huge
think like Three Amigos was a later film, but I may have seen it before this. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's weird with timelines and stuff like this.
Yeah, so because
he was pretty like had done a bunch of stuff like The Jerk and stuff that came up before this. I think trying to piece together the timeline of his career, but he was pretty much on fire, as they say, at this point, career wise. I think. Also stars Kathleen Turner, and this was her second movie that she was ever in. So
it was very young Kathleen.
Yeah, it's like Body Heat did great. I guess that was her first movie, and then so this was like post Body Heat, pre Romancing the Stone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of amazing to see like super young Kathleen Turner.
I realized while watching this again the other day that in my head I have Kathleen Turner and Kelly McGillis like just mixed up as the same person.
I started to think that too. Yeah, for some reason it was like maybe it's just kind of the husky voice or something. Like I could see like she could have been in Top Gun, you know, and like, but yeah, definitely more of a full career. Kathleen Turner. Kelly McGillis kind of not so much. Yeah, but. And directed by Carl Reiner, not Rob Reiner.
No, not Rob Reiner.
Old Man Reiner.
Yes.
And who also directed The Jerk and Summer School, which will probably appear on one of my later lists. I love that movie. Remember that
with
dumbass Mark Harmon movie? Yeah. I love that movie. I watched that movie so many times.
Carl Reiner is in Ocean's 11, which will come up later in this podcast.
Hey, he's a weird dude. Like, he has a lot of cameos. And like
he was...
Even his span of like movies he directed were just like these goofy comedies, and then like some that were kind of more real movies. And
he's been around forever. He was on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah. It looked like a lot of like
relatively young man
writing and stuff for those two.
He's a super talented dude.
Cool. So I like I was saying, kind of like went into this movie going, I don't think this is gonna hold up. Like my family is huge Steve Martin fans too, and like my mom just like worshipped him, and like was her defining like all I have to do is look at his face, and I start cracking up laughing, you know, and that kind of always translated to us. We're like, what? And so now every time I see Steve Martin, you just kind of have to giggle. You know, you don't even have to say anything. A lot of his old comedy isn't even particularly hilarious. It's weird because it's like. He's like really bridges the gap between like old people humor and like just that weird kind of new humor, you know, and like, which is weird too because it comes up again later with our Muppet Show talk where a lot of Muppet humor I think is like weird because it's like not particularly funny. It's just like old man humor and like kid humor mixed together. You know, I mean, like Steve Martin, like I got an arrow in my head. You know, it's just like what? You know, it's like
that's not funny.
Yeah, no, but like somehow he made it work and was like the bridge for so much other stuff that became way funnier by our standards, I guess. Even so, he's a Steve Martin fan, and I remember watching this movie as a kid and like enjoying it and just. Oh, it's goofy glory, but first few minutes it comes out blazing with like ridiculous jokes, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is not gonna hold up. This is so dumb. Like when he hits her, and of course with everything we talk about, spoilers. So if somehow you haven't seen it, Man with Two Brains from 1983, you might want to watch that first.
I don't know if you could technically spoil a movie that's that old.
Yeah, I think we're off the hook, but. So he hits Kathleen Turner. He's a bigwig surgeon doctor, and she goes flying through the air like ridiculously high. You know?
Oh yeah, like way over the car.
So had a wife that died, and then he falls in love with this girl that he hit, and he saves her through brain surgery, but she's totally just grave digger.
She's a totally horrible
human. And and they just kind of had this horrible like dynamic off each other. Then he stumbles into like
a sexless, awful, terrible marriage.
She won't have sex with him.
There's no consummation.
No, so it's tragic. Poor Steve, he's like got a lot of bad jokes in there. He's breaking the windows with his...
like humping a wall, licking an X-ray.
A lot of weird stuff. And it was weird because it treaded like a thin line. I thought like where it was like almost like an airplane movie where they did like puns and stuff. That
was like bizarre. I did not remember. It was almost like Mel Brooks type of like screwballish. Like there's a scene where like they have to like bridge a gap on it has busted open on a ledge that they're on, and he's like, hang on to my neck, and he's and he licks his hands and uses his suction cups, and you're just like, what is happening? Like, why did this make the movie?
That scene in particular, I thought I looked away or was doing something a little too long, and I was like, that had to have made more sense.
I
was like, why would his spit make him stick to this wall?
Was insane. And then he like needs more spit halfway through, so he holds his hand out, and Kathleen Turner licks his hand and he puts it back. It's insanity. It is just.
And they don't make movies like that by any means anymore.
No,
they either go full like Naked Gun, or there's just a comedy, but there's like no in between.
It is just a weird ass, like awkward combination of like walking through. It's almost like someone saw like an airplane movie, and then they were like, "Hey, let's make a movie like that."
Yeah, but not as full committed to goofing it. Yeah, I meant to look up Airplane just to see. Because he made other ones, like a Fatal Instinct one. Carl Reiner directed that anyway, like way later. And I think that one's like a full-blown, like, scary movie, whatever, like all the billion knockoffs of, like, Naked Gun and stuff like that. But, the Zucker brothers, those are the dudes that did, like, the airplane? Not Zucker, something like that. But we try not to look stuff up while we're going, but we might have to. I can babble if you got the fast thumbs going on the iPad.
Probably don't.
But lots of weird stuff. Pointy Birds, the poems that he reads there was great.
Oh my god!
And it was pretty ridiculous because those are some examples of it being like an airplane-ish type movie, where it was like. What did I say? It was like they give him a sign. Oh, it's like, give me a sign to his dead wife. Should I fall in love with this girl? Give me a sign. And like the whole house like shakes, and she's going, no, don't do it. And he's like, but really, just any sign, you know? It's just that kind of, you know. And the drunk test when they give him the like drunk test, and he's like
these tests are ridiculously
he's
hard.
Doing like cartwheels on the line and stuff later. But
Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker.
Yeah.
How did you remember that?
I don't know.
And it was written by those guys. So
sadly, I was like, I hesitated. I was like, oh, shit, or was that the dude that like invented Facebook? I can't remember. One or the other.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I think that sums up my whole life. Really lost somewhere between the Zucker brothers and Facebook creators, whatever his name is. But but I got like some serious laughs out of it. Like I don't know if the beers were kicking in halfway through. Like for some reason, the dumbass, like where they're falling through the paper walls, and he goes into like the lab, like where he finds all these like brains that they're doing experiments with, and that's how he ends up like talking to a brain, which doesn't make any damn sense. Where it's like through telepathy, I guess, and he falls in love with the brain.
Yes,
and he gets the idea eventually that he could like swap out this awesome brain with his like evil wife's brain, Kathleen Turner. And but yeah, like they just like, I guess because they make it look like he's in a dungeon lab, but it's like really just in an apartment complex.
You're right.
And like,
and they're like, it's amazing what you can do with this
like all them just falling through like the fake walls. It's just like, you can do anything. They just like stab part of the wall and it just breaks. But I don't know why, but I was like crying laughing through that. But I don't know. Did you have any favorite parts that were still cracked you up more than you thought they would?
Yeah, I enjoyed that sort of segment. I enjoyed just like the brain transference part at the end, like where his horrible wife has been murdered by elevator killer, who was Merv Griffin.
Yeah,
which
another thing that just doesn't
like the whole movie, like as ridiculous as the movie is, like the whole movie, I'm thinking who's it gonna be? Which character is gonna be? We've already seen, and it's just Merv Griffin.
It's just
He's not been in any other part of the film.
He plays himself.
Yeah, he plays himself. He's like, I just like murdering.
Like that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny. And so he's like, I gotta get the nice lady brain is dying. And there's like this weird like pinball bouncing around. And the cops are trying to stop
that's a really awkward scene.
It was insane.
Because he hits these switches to like switch the brain as the cops are chasing him down, and it like works.
A gorilla gooses him.
Yeah, gorilla humor, and
it's just the weirdest of weird. I really enjoyed that part for just how awkwardly strange and
like somebody would step in nowadays and be like, "Yeah, we can't release this.
Can't do that.
This is ridiculous.
This is just insane."
Like all these like creditable actors,
and he goes on like Steve Martin goes on to do like very much more. I mean, comedic performances, and characters and stuff like My Blue Heaven. He definitely plays a character,
right?
But nothing like this that I'm aware where you're just like, it is the weirdest, just strange. I mean, it was early on.
Yeah, I felt like he was still kind of branching that, where he's using his comedian shtick a little bit too. Like when he does his like, "What are your beans?" when he starts like shuffling and getting angry, and like his like crazy voice and stuff. Right. It definitely seems more of like his. Like classic Steve Martin.
Yeah,
kicking it into overdrive.
At that point, he's still more of a comedian than he is an actor.
Yeah. People are willing to be like, well, he's not really blowing it up with this dynamic acting at this
I also think in 1983 people would accept.
Just different times, I guess. I don't
something
know.
different. Yeah, he's no Kevin Hart.
No, yeah, he'd been in like an action movie by now or something. But
he'd have to have abs.
And Into the Mud, Scum Queen. That apparently became a catchphrase for a while, but I don't think I've ever really heard.
I don't really think I've ever heard anybody.
Scum Queen. But,
she's all muddy and brown. She's like, you'll be dead by the end of the week or something. So she's trying to murder him. He's thinking about murdering her, but then he can't do it, and then Merv Griffin kills her anyway.
So it all works out. But I thought it held up great. I was surprised. And the boobs, they held up too. I'm thinking the first one was not Kathleen Turner's boob. No. It seemed like a stunt boob.
It was, I think, probably a stunt boob. Yeah,
it was like really isolated shot while she's having surgery.
Yeah.
Second boob was the hooker boob. So I was wondering, was there one in particular that really stuck in my memory?
It was the stunt boob.
Okay.
I remembered that one specifically. And then as the movie progressed...
And that's like really early on, too.
It is.
The first,
I just remember thinking,
15
boob.
minutes of the movie.
That's all right.
It's like, oh, wow, I wonder if Craig made it past this point.
I definitely saw the whole thing, because as I watched it, I started to have vague recollection of it.
Yeah, that's what was weird, because while I was watching it, like I said, I'd seen it a bunch of times as a kid, but been ages since I'd seen that, but I was still remembering each set and scene as they were happening, and it was pretty crazy how that works with your memory. I was like, oh yeah, when they had the dungeon lab and stuff, I was like, let's totally know this. But awesome, cool, man. Well, I felt like it held up, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching that again.
I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I'm sure it seemed like nobody was really crapping on it review wise, but what a weird movie though.
It's got a 70% fresh rating on the Rotten Tomatoes. So
surprised they haven't tried to remake it.
America loves it. No, God, terrible.
But shall we move on to a much more dramatic,
much more serious turn?
Yes. As a child, I did not focus on boobs in movies. I watched fake historical drama thrillers set in World War II
with Michael Caine
with every British person
Robert
playing
Duvall.
a Nazi. So stars Robert Duvall, Michael Caine, Donald Sutherland, Larry Hagman, also known as JR.
JR and I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah. So all-star cast for the time, 1976. So it came out a year before I was born. And like I said,
me too.
One of two videos we got first from Family Video, from the Brafferton Shopping Center in Stafford, Virginia. And it must have been, I was trying to do the math of when, because I felt we were kind of late getting a VCR compared to a lot of friends.
I
and
feel like
stuff,
we were as well at my house.
But I've narrowed it down. It must have been around 83, so like around Man with Two Brains era, but like this came out in 76. But yeah, do you remember when you got a VCR?
It was... I can almost tell you for sure.
Yeah, I did like a weird math equation where I was like, I remember I went to the hospital in second grade for asthma, and when I got out, like the big treat, my dad took me to get any movie I wanted. Whoa. And we'd already been there a bunch by that point, so I knew that like going to this video store in particular was well established in our thing, and I got American Ninja.
Yeah, with Michael Dudikoff.
I was all like, clearly this is the trophy for living. Another this is the big reward, was that I get to watch American Ninja. But that, and I was like, well, second grade, and I narrowed it down to second grade. Must have been around 83. So
I think it was around 85 or 86 at our house. Because the first thing we ever recorded on a VHS was Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. It came out in 84, so it probably took a while to get to HBO.
Yeah, we never had any kind of cable or anything so much later, but like we dove into that and just rented the shit out of some movies. I remember kicking it off with Star Wars and Eagles Landed.
I thought when you assigned to me, it was Where Eagles Dare, which is a Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Also a good movie, also set in World War II.
Right.
Not the same
Not the movie. Yeah, and this is a weird one too, because like my dad, huge history guy, my brother, huge World War II history. Everybody is just, it was constant. So I was just growing up around war movies all the time, and I always kind of just lumped this in with like Bridge Too Far and The Longest Day, and like all actual things that happened in World War II.
Like, well, clearly that happened.
We watched it like tons, but I kind of like in hindsight now start to piece together that like my dad and even probably my brother was a little smarter and older, and that like as far as history knowledge, always kind of thought it was more of like an entertaining history movie.
Right.
It wasn't like
a what if history.
Yeah, so it's just kind of, because I was just like, because I remember like taking this into like history thoughts of like, yes, I remember that epic battle where they tried to kill Winston Churchill. So the quick synopsis,
but it didn't work.
Yeah, was that the war is pretty much lost at this point. And the movie's weird because it flips the perspective. I guess that's the only real creative thing in it, is that it takes the perspective of the Nazis, and they're all kind of just on their last, whatever. A lot of them are pretty much known they're losing and turning on the idea and everything. But so you kind of get it from them, and they get some last assignment from Crazy Hitler. Like, not that he was not crazy until the end, but like crazy idea to capture Churchill because he's supposed to be in this place, and they can capture him, and it'll be a big, turnaround to maybe save the war.
Maybe sue for peace.
Yeah, that's
they're
what they
obliterated.
the Colonel Robert Duvall was like, kind of knows it. Everyone knows it's like a lost effort, and there's no way they're going to pull this off. But he's like, well, maybe if we can capture him, we can at least negotiate for a peaceful treaty or something, and not, all have to die and all that. But and Michael Caine's like this kind of broken commander anyway, Steiner, and he like
trooper
early on yells at this other Nazi for like pulling this, was she a Polish Jew?
She was and
they're like, what do you care? And he tries to save her, and then he almost saves her, but then they kill her anyway. And he's just like flips out on the dude, and they basically like banish him into like some
horrible
quarry
internment, death quarry,
something like that. But anyway, so this crazy operation is like his chance to, I don't know, redeem himself. I don't really know what his motivation is, like why he's so like broken but still determined to do this horrible. That was like the part. It's like, wow, it's cool because it is getting the perspective of these Nazis that are like doing different stuff, but it was like, oh, they're still fucking Nazis. Like, watch, am I supposed to be rooting for these people? And it's weird because it kind of puts you into that chair where you're like, am I supposed to give a shit? Even like Donald Sutherland's
I like movies where you end up rooting for the bad guys.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to Carl Reiner. Mm-hmm. In the remake of the movie Ocean's 11, he's one of the main cast members. And in that movie, I mean, you're rooting for the bad guys. I mean, they do a really good job of like kind of giving you their perspective, and they're likable, and you want them to pull off the heist. And like, there's a part of you like they do a good job of like walking a fine line in this movie, The Eagles Landed, where like they're the Nazis, and you don't want them to succeed, and you know they won't.
Right. Maybe that's the saving grace and all of it. It's like, well, whatever. They're not
it's
gonna
like,
really.
Like they do a good job of kind of making them like sort of honorable. And you're like, man, maybe they could just capture Churchill for a minute.
Just rough him up a little bit,
just a little bit, or just like maybe get him to the beach or something.
Just a little. You
kind of want Michael Caine to get him.
It's weird. It's definitely a strange dynamic, and I guess that's why it worked as well as it did, based on a huge best-selling novel. Jack Higgins, he was like the Tom Clancy before it was cool to be Tom Clancy.
That's right.
I guess. But he it just turns it, and like it is weird because like you're saying, they have those moments of like, and that's how the big like turnaround when they basically dress up as Polish paratroopers and show up and in this little town
exercises.
And then like this little girl falls in the water, and the one Nazi soldier jumps in to save her, but he gets killed, and his uniform gets ripped open, and they insisted on wearing their Nazi uniforms underneath,
so that they wouldn't be considered spies.
And they die in honor of their country and all that shit. But then it's just like, whoa, well,
the jig is up.
The jig is up, and but he's like diving in to save this little girl, so it is kind of that conflict of like, oh, he's a kind-hearted Nazi.
But those those sort of like historical fiction war movies of that era of the late 70s, mid-late 70s, they always have that scene where it's like, we just lost the bombs we need. What are we gonna do? We're gonna do it anyway. And like there's always that monkey wrench. It's always the monkey wrench moment, and the monkey wrench moment is
even
the
Donald Sutherland's character, because he's like the mercenary IRA, token Irish dude. Is like, I'm just here for the fun of it. And he's all like totally the charming man. He's supposed to be like, he's so fun,
and like the woman in it. This is like one of the first things I wrote down watching it, and it happens early on, like. After Donald Sutherland's character gets there, Liam, I think his name might be Devlin, and like he falls in love and is falling in love with this girl in the town. But like, why? Like he hasn't done anything remarkable. He's been there like 4 minutes, and she's like deeply in love with him all of a sudden, and to the point that she later murders somebody for him to protect him. I mean, now he's also an abusive dick, so I mean that kind of makes it more understandable. But it's like I just wrote like. This makes no sense. Like it's like a very sort of.
I wonder if that's how it's fleshed out in the book more or something.
In a movie where it's a very slow burn. It's a 70s movie. Like it takes its time to move the plot along. Like they're really quick about, and she falls in love with him.
Right. Next thing they spend like a good hour on them going, I don't know, this is a terrible plan.
Will work.
It's not gonna work, but what do we have to lose? And they're all just like walking around. There's like these clearly American and British actors like, I'm a German.
I speak German.
But
this is
Robert
a great
Duvall's
plan.
awesome as always. He's like just totally broken down commander with an eye patch and
he's got like
busted arm.
Bad arm, and he smokes some mashed up Russian cigarettes.
But that love story subplot, that just I still don't really get. And even at the end, she's like, I don't even understand why, but I love you, and I don't know what you're doing. But it's like, well, this is kind of a big deal, lady.
You murdered somebody.
And he's like, totally, this isn't the good.
And like he sort of maybe redeems himself, but he's still kind of like he's the immoral dick of the group. Like even the German guys are like, and they make a point of it in the movie. They're where like I think maybe Michael Caine. He's like, so you're telling me that if someone else had approached you, you would be trying to kidnap Hitler right now. And he's like,
totally.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think he's just like that sort of Boba Fett mercenary thing, which makes him a little bit more likable, but still.
He's like a rogue.
As a kid, like that's why I like watching this a billion times as a kid. I was like, I think I always kept the Nazi thing perspective with like Michael Caine, and even though we all loved him from his previous works,
right,
in old boring movies, but in this boring movie, I kind of like was like, yeah, he's playing a bad guy, but you kind of root for him, but you don't feel good about it.
Yeah,
but like I totally like didn't even remember Donald Sutherland. I was like, how's he tie into the like in the first few minutes? I was like, oh shit, he's like totally helping him through this whole thing, and like I'd forgotten.
And I don't know if it's because of movies like this or because he just. I mean, Donald Sutherland is American.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he is always
and
like,
as a kid, I can remember being very confused about two things. One, where the hell is Donald Sutherland from? Because I thought he was British forever, and he's not. Two, is Roy Orbison blind? Because he always wears those fucking glasses.
Totally thought he was blind, too. Yeah.
Both of which are not... One is not British, the other was not blind.
And Bud Melman is also not the dude that hung out on the Letterman show. He always dressed up as Roy Orbison. But that's
right.
A whole nother...
Right.
But I thought he was blind, too. And yeah, Donald Sutherland, at least Irish or something.
He's got a very weird manner of speaking.
Yeah,
it's strange. Like, it's not surprising he can do at least a passable Irish accent.
Because I thought his Irish accent actually was pretty
anyway.
overdone at times, too. It was funny because he would, like, nail it a lot of times. But then he was like, I'm going to be up at the pub. Maybe it was just when he was like, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going up to have a beer at the pub.
Well, I'd not be saying no to him.
Because I'm Irish. I clearly drink a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like I said, boring start, too. I felt bad after signing this.
I enjoyed it. It's a very slow developing movie, but... I mean, maybe because all movies were like that when we were kids. Like, to me, it's enjoyable. Like, it's still exciting because you know it's, like, leading towards this.
Yeah.
We're making this plan, you know?
Especially
and, you know, a lot of times in life, the making the plan is way better than executing the plan anyway. So.
It's a good metaphor for life, really. It's like, pointless plan. This is never going to work. And, you know, but we'll have fun along the way.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, and the flip perspective thing, to go back to that, it was weird, because my dad always liked these kind of movies and stuff, and I think if you held it up to him, like, as far as, clearly he would like Bridge Too Far and all the ones that were based on actual events more, but, like, This was always just a kind of a fun throwaway one, I think, that they watched a lot, but it was funny because I started thinking back too. He loved always doing that, like flipping the perspectives of like things, especially with the bad guys, whether it be like the Confederates versus the Union and stuff. And I remember I did one of those books that you always do in elementary school, where you like write a story and then they put the binding together or whatever for you with the cardboard and whatever the hell. And I wrote one with him, and it was Hans the German Soldier. And I remember thinking that was like. Initially kind of weird, but I was like, all right, well, we'll do the German soldier. You know, we never got into any, like, crazy Nazi stuff, but it was like Heinz, the German soldier in World War II, and he sneaks up on a guy and gets killed, basically, and he dies, and it's this epic tale from, like, but I was like, kind of been around this time, and, like, too, I wondered if it was, like, kind of inspired by this or something. I was like, why would my dad choose for his son?
So his name's going to be Hans.
And he's going to be a German soldier.
He's going to die.
And he's going to die, and everyone's going to know he's technically the bad guy, but it was kind of that idea. It was like, well, can't you start a little, like, more subtle with the flipping the tables? Do we really have to take the side of the Nazis?
Yeah.
it's like, just how about, like, a billionaire that loses all his money or something, you know, or something. The poor guy versus, you know, whatever, you know. It's like even Darth Vader or something, you know.
Yeah, something. It's like no redeeming qualities whatsoever. They're Nazis.
Extreme as far as, like, well, let's do a movie from their
And they don't,
perspective.
like, brush it under the rug. Like, they really just sort of, like... Final solution, like they're bad.
Yeah, he's all like, no regrets or anything. It's not like they're all wishy washy. Like Michael Caine's like, I just sometimes wish I could just get away and move to California. Yeah. Just start up my own little sausage stand in California.
It'd be great.
He's like, no, we will die for the Fuhrer, and it's my duty. And I'm like, whoa, really?
It's just like at any point, and there's like the point in the movie where they could easily just be like, nah, this isn't going to work. Okay,
let's people
like
us here in this town. It's a nice town.
It's a nice town. We could give ourselves up. We could probably retire here. But nope.
But some funny lines too, like the whole like yes, like where he comes out and the soldier says yes. It's like, oh, you're making fun of me, boy. Like JR comes up and starts. Who's the most dipshit, Colonel Dipshit? I didn't even write down his actual name. What's his Larry Hagman? But he gets his. But like
it
was
was
a battle at the end.
That's another very classic sort of like 70s World War. Like, it's always the comedic element, like the doofus idiot, often officer or whatever who serves no purpose.
Right.
Though he doesn't often get shot straight in the forehead,
right,
and with blood gushing everywhere.
Yeah, he just gets totally blasted by that point. I think they built it up well, where he gave so many bad orders that almost got everybody killed.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Which also kind of leans to the weird, get that dipshit American, shoot that guy in the face. It's like, whoa,
idiot!
No. It's like he's the good guy.
I'll tell you who knows what's going on. This German guy over here.
Follow Michael Caine. But and then the big twist ending to wrap up. They get there. Churchill's there. Somehow Michael Caine sneaks out from the church. He's all alone at this point. He's the last one. And he sneaks up on the back porch where Churchill's just having his little good night whiskey and
a
cigar. And pow!
He just pops him.
Pops and kills Churchill right on the porch.
And then he gets blasted.
Blasted as soon as he shoots. And the guy's like, well... good thing none of this matters. The army...
Churchill is at the Malta conference right now with the world leaders. And this is Steve Fowler.
The guy that
brave vaudevillian.
The guy that took the worst acting gig ever. How the hell do you audition for that role?
He played his part to the very end. I'd be like, it's not
me! Yeah, he knew. That. But it was it's so weird because it's why would they be so willing to kill this poor actor, too? I mean, it was like a trap to lure Steiger in.
I guess.
But, I mean, they could have just not had Churchill be there, and then he wouldn't have had anybody to kill.
Or they could have just had, somebody standing with him with a gun.
Exactly. Now, let him go out for his nightcap.
Just stick with him.
He's bait.
Yeah.
Dude, the poor bastard just got, gunned down for no reason. It was just man, that is clearly the worst gig ever. Without all right, you'll be auditioning for the role of Churchill, and you'll get a cigar and as much whiskey as you want.
That's right.
And there's a pretty good chance, and you're gonna get killed.
Yeah. And the requisite is, do you look like him?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do.
I am a method actor.
That's right. It's I put on 48 pounds, and my hair is receding. So I look just like Churchill.
Gets blown away, and then they're like, "Well, good thing that all worked out." And then they just killed Michael Caine and.
Yeah.
Apparently, in the book, he sneaks off. Though they didn't actually kill old Steiner. And there's a sequel, "The Eagle Has Flown," and
where he escapes.
And then him and Devlin meet up again for some other wacky adventure, where they go on a jewel heist or something.
Why not?
Every bad sequel, they just keep the two lovable characters going and. I think even the Devlin, Donald Sutherland's character continues on through a bunch of Jack Higgins novels.
Oh, wow.
But, man.
Rapscallion.
Yeah, he's too lovable to kill, even if he's friends with the Nazis.
Bare-knuckled boxing alcoholic.
Well, let's move on. Enough Nazi talk.
Let's do.
Boobs and Nazis. First
Boobs
two.
Right? If you want to listen to this podcast.
We got it covered. All right, guys. So shifting gears from the cinemas to the music,
the
tunes, the rock and roll music. Right. We took the theme of first concerts, going out to live shows, and mine being B-52's Cosmic Thing.
That's right.
1989.
So you went to the supporting tour,
the Cosmic Thing tour. It was weird. I was trying to do the math on that too. It was. 89, but we saw them. There's a cool website, setlist.com, I think. Maybe setlist.fm.com or something weird like that. But you can actually people submit set lists for a long. And they didn't have the set list on this one, but they had the date at Merriweather Post Pavilion, June 22nd, 1990. Wow. So it must have been, that kind of shows what a huge album this was too. That it was released in June 89, but they were still touring hard a solid year later.
Wow.
So they must have come through once before probably, and then this was the second round pavilion show. Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers opened up, and my brothers were huge Bob Marley and Ziggy Marley fans at that point. So that was like, oh, we gotta go. And I was like, yeah, man, I want to go. And, again, my mom was a huge B-52s fan. Somehow she loved like Love Shack and stuff when that came out. Not so much the early stuff, I guess. Felt like my oldest brother probably had the tape of maybe their first album or something, but there wasn't a huge amount of their early stuff being played around. But this was like considered their comeback album. They like,
it's weird. Like their first album was like 1980.
Yeah,
like their career spanned a long time to be so sort of esoteric, and you would assume kind of limited in appeal.
Yeah.
I mean, like they were. I mean, as far as I know, they're still together.
Yeah, technically, but, I guess.
You know, but I mean, like they were a viable, sort of commercially successful band at some definable, like measurable level for a long time.
Yeah, and those first ones were so like punky, weird. I mean, it was weird because as a kid, it was like, especially with this, latched onto like they're so wacky and the hippy dippy '90s like version of hippiness that was coming back. Right. It was like. Not quite hippie, but it was like this weird, just everybody had like funky necklaces and weird, you know, it was like this weird late 80s, 90s wardrobe thing going on. And so, yeah, like that, but like going back then, like now, I you know, love early B-52 stuff is like great just because they're so weird and so punk in a sense that it's just like that early, like post-punk weird kind of, they're just weird as hell, but like in a cool.
Like, sometimes it's like psychedelic or acid.
Yeah, it's all like trippy, but not like weird. Just jammy by any means. It's all poppy and weird, but I mean, it's just very like theatrical and, you know, I don't know, a lot going on more than just like beehives and like something that sounds retro, you know. Right. It's not like that. So this was like their big comeback album, even when we didn't really necessarily know it at the time. I just knew that they were like older. Like once we found that out, we were kind of joking. It was like, oh man, they're close to your age, Mom. They're so old. You know, they're probably like late 30s or 40s. But I was like, oh man, we're going to go see a bunch of old people. But yeah, it was a great show. We just went, as far as the quick show memory, like it was tagging along with my two older brothers. We had lawn tickets, so we were just kind of out, didn't really see much, but I was just like, what the hell, this whole world? I barely left my basement ever as a kid, so this was amazing. And it poured rain, of course, so I'm like out on the lawn, and everyone's just like dancing, having a great time. Someone's just like, yeah, dance, man. And they even said that to me. I was just like, oh, I'm just standing here enjoying this. Like, don't make me dance, too. It's in the mud. I'm going to slip and hurt myself. So, but yeah.
This is safe.
And, God, I thought I wrote down the grade. It's the 89. Oh, I can figure this out. Going into 8th grade, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah, summer before 8th grade year. So
that's like a pretty epic summer before 8th grade.
Yeah, I think so. But it was weird because I was already into like The Cure by this point and stuff. So I was definitely like into like good music and stuff. But yeah, I hadn't been to any live shows, and before that, and we saw like a couple like right after that. We saw Morrissey like maybe shortly after that, and like kind of just hit it hard from there on. But that was like the big breaking through the gates there.
The B-52s were the one.
Yeah, and like once I realized pavilion shows weren't very threatening, I was like, this is easy. Going to a concert,
I can totally do
hardest
this.
Part's waiting in a line forever when you don't have to like piss really bad. Like
you're fine.
Yeah, that's like 90% of concert going. As you get older, you realize that everything's just based on like your
just when
bladder. Like, oh god, do I have to buy like a $15 Bud Light? You know, as a kid, I was just like, this is great. I'm just standing in this field. But we were pretty sold on the album going into that. I guess because it had been out for like a year. I didn't realize. I remember we got like a super early taste of it with remember the movie Earth Girls Are Easy?
Yeah.
With
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. It's a deep all-star cast, and just that's one we got to revisit. That's a nice movie. But the soundtrack of that had Cosmic Thing on it before like it came out even, I think. So like somehow we were like, this song's kooky, this is crazy.
And it is.
And it's just Fred Schneider in all his glory just cutting loose. But so we were hooked, and then like I mean just looking at that track listing, there's so many huge singles on that album.
Oh, is it? Yeah. I hadn't listened to the album in a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten, like, the last song, the instrumental song at the end.
Yeah.
Is like a really nice kind
it is
period
cool.
at the end of the sentence. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And the song right before it is a really good one. Yes,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it's called. I couldn't remember. And Deadbeat Club, I thought was off of an earlier album of theirs for some reason. And it's a great song. I really like
that was kind of like the last like single, I think, but still a huge song and all. But that's like the one that I think is still like holds up the best.
Yeah,
so
the more popular songs that they had at the time, I understand, like Love Shack, I understand why it's successful, but you hear that and you're just going, whatever.
Yeah.
Deadbeat Club is still really good.
Yeah. Rome was pretty awesome. It's just like, again, so many of those two just got so massacred by like radio, and you know, that was around the era when I still would be influenced or actually hear radio and MTV videos and stuff, and they just like massacred Love Shack.
Like the funny thing about
Channel Z,
the B-52s is like Fred Schneider is the front man, and he is sort of like the most sort of like the part that sticks in my brain.
Yeah.
But like the best songs are the ones where everybody else is doing their thing. Because after I listened to the album a couple times yesterday, I had to clean the fish tank. And I'm cleaning the fish tank, and I'm realizing that I'm sitting there going, "Bubbles in my fish tank." Bubbles in my fish tank. It's like that's what he does.
It's the funnest job in the world. Like, it's like the dude's got it nailed. Because all he does is just add the wackiness, and you know how it has songs where he just cuts loose. But this was kind of cool because I felt like this was, and probably because there was more of a commercial push behind this one to make it like a breakthrough album and stuff. It was like produced by Nile Rodgers and Don Was, and so it definitely had some big backing. And but like he would just had either, I don't know if he was graceful enough or if the producers were like, all right, Fred, just listen, let's just let them do Rome. This song sounds real good. You know, he's like, how about if I just Rome?
Like, that's my thing.
Because even like Deadbeat Club, it's pretty much all them at the end. He's just like Deadbeat Club, but it works. But it's a little weird to do. It's like,
that sort of like, it's almost like talking between him and them,
and it works when it works. Because a lot of the early albums, they still had a lot of like really nice melodies and stuff, but it was still more punky and weird. Where he just like, they'd do the whole song, and he'd just be like, do like the last like outro where he's like, turn this beat on, you know, he's just like, dance this mess around and stuff, you know. But he's great. Have you heard his solo albums by any chance? He just cuts loose, nothing but Fred. He had like one around the time when all this was blowing up more, where it got banned from MTV, is the Monster song. He's like, I got a monster in my pants and it does a naughty dance. Just like totally ridiculous. I think for a while it was like the only video banned from MTV. So it's like, really? Everything that's going on? but yeah, gotta love Fred Schneider. But so did you get into it at the time? Did you hear it much? Or just
I knew like the radio hits and stuff, but again, like I thought that the Deadbeat Club song must have been like an earlier one. Probably because I never really listened to the whole album at the time. Maybe I don't know. There's sort of like deep cut stuff that you don't catch as much because it wasn't Rome and it wasn't Love Shack. Those were really good songs. They were really good.
Yeah, even Junebug.
Yeah.
They get crazy in the mud and stuff. That was when people went ape shit at the show because they're all in the mud.
Oh, a mud scum queen.
Yeah. Totally. But 4 times platinum, that album. It was their big comeback. I guess it'd been like 3 years since their last album. They probably had kind of taking a break there. They had some tragedy in the band too.
I think the guitarist died of AIDS.
That was just sad. It was the blonde one, Cindy Wilson's brother too. So, which is crazy though, because they're like, after this huge hiatus, and this is their big comeback. It was only like 3 years.
You're like,
it's like that's like every band now takes like at least 3 years off in between. It was like they like totally reformed and got over all this tragedy and came out stronger than ever. It's like. But pretty cool. Great live show, of course. I saw them a bunch of times after that too. They put out like Good Stuff in '92, which is technically a terrible album, but like just an excuse for them to tour and play more old stuff. And saw them a lot of like college like shows and weird, like these. That was like a big thing around. I guess they still do it, but like we'd go up to like George Washington University, like these big like gymnasium kind of shows, and we saw them play, and so yeah, a lot of cool weird stuff like that.
Yeah, I've never seen them. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, they definitely hold up. They're just wacky enough where it doesn't feel like a dorky wedding party or anything, but still cool, because even like Love Shack, I feel like a lot of that like lost its beauty because it had gotten so adopted by like, we're having a great time, Love Shack, put on Love Shack, kind of, or it got like added into the wedding party mixes all the time and stuff. But
would you consider yourself an enduring fan?
Yeah.
On the back of that show or subsequent?
Definitely it's carried over. I was huge at the time. Loved them. As far as like the new stuff, it was weird because, I never really delved into like the early albums then so much. But then now, like even listening to it now, more just because it got so killed at my house and it is a little more like goofy. Yeah. Like when I listen to the early albums now, like I love them just because they're like so like punky, weird, or it's just not wacky for the sake of being wacky, but it's like these guys are the real deal,
Right.
Like, so like now if I'm gonna throw it on, it's usually one of the early albums. Like, but still, I love a good like 80s mix or something or 90s mix wherever this would fall. It's right on the cusp.
There.
But I think it held up. I was like I said, like a few of those just kind of grate on you because you've heard them so much. But like Channel Z and stuff, still pretty rad.
They're great. Yeah, some of them are just really great songs.
I probably saw them enough where now I don't really need to see the old version of them and stuff in concert. If somebody gave me tickets, I'd go, but I'm not gonna really go out of my way.
I would go see them because I have not, but I mean they've got to be close to 60 now.
Yeah.
So.
Should we
let's move on?
Bounce this on to your first concert experience.
My first concert experience, 1993, I guess it must have. Oh, 1993. That's when the album
came out.
Late 93, early 94. Okay. I saw Lenny Kravitz supporting his Are You Gonna Go My Way album. I had
Are You Gonna Go My Tour?
Are You Gonna Go? I had just started college. Relatively recently, and like I did not grow up. I think this will probably come up multiple times, but I didn't grow up in a house where a lot of music was listened to. Yeah. So it wasn't until I kind of went to college and started meeting other people and people who did listen to music. I was like, going to a show, that'd be cool. So it was.
People play music live.
Yeah, that's weird. We actually drove all the way back to Charlotte from Cullowhee, North Carolina, to the old Charlotte Coliseum to see the show. It's a tiny little shitty venue that closed down not long after. Blind Melon opened up for him.
Nice.
It
had been close to one of their last shows.
Yeah, it was within a year or so of him dying, maybe.
I saw them too once, actually, too. Like way before even like No Rain like broken out.
I think it had just kind of been hot because people were really excited that they were there. Right. Yeah. And it was a very sort of hair-centric experience because my top of mind memories are when Lenny came out onto the show. He actually came from somewhere in the back through the crowd, and people were yanking on the dreads. He still had the dreads. Nice. And the drummer had this huge afro, and I remember thinking, man, she's so cool. And then a song or two into the Blind Melon set, I remember looking over to my right somewhere, and there were all these people sort of silhouetted by the lights and stuff, and there was just this halo of light around somebody's head, and I said, that's Joe Whitehead, who nobody listening to this knows, but he was another guy from Cullowhee, and I just knew it was him because he just had this huge, tall, crazy, wispy head of hair. He looked like a grandpa at age 20 or 21.
Is it Steve Martin?
It was not. And we ended up walking over there and sitting with him. But it was a good show. It was fun.
So I didn't catch. Is it a stadium or like
it was the Coliseum. Okay. So it was an indoor Coliseum. Okay. I actually went there once when I was younger to see a monster truck mudslinging.
The one where that horrible.
The one where somebody died. It was. I remember it being really, really, really fun. But I'd never been to a concert before, and I was just sort of like learning that people listen to music and were into things.
Everybody's rocking out. Did he keep it peppy?
It was. I remember it being like a really high energy show, and I remember thinking, "Man, the drummer is really good."
Tearing it up, huh?
Yeah, and the bassist was good. I remember, but I clearly did not have a distinct memory because listening back to the album,
it's a little rough.
It's like the title track is still, you can just like, this is good, and then after that, it just descends into like.
Well, that's how I was wondering if it was a peppy show because it's like it really just loses steam.
Like he played, like, and he had other songs like Mr. Cab Driver. He had come out with on a previous album, and so he had like other stuff.
Let Love Rule.
Let Love Rule. He played, which is not really like a peppy song, but hard rocking song. But it was not like this sort of like just dribbling on yourself, like black girl.
I was surprised by because I was like, because I never had any desire to listen to any Lenny or like, and I've just always had some kind of. Like, just, based on the videos.
So you're a racist.
I was pretty much a racist growing up, and still, I was like, it's time I overcame this. And I really was like, putting, like, music snobbery is a huge thing. And I feel like I've overcome it over the years. And I was like, all right, this is stupid. I'm going to rock out to this album and enjoy it for this purpose. And, because, in the back of my head, guilty pleasure or whatever, you're like, are you going to go my way? It was always like, some fucking rules, that riff.
It's great. Yeah, like that sucks you. It is the definition of a hook. Yeah.
I mean, it's like that riff you can't deny. And so I was like, all right, man, let's dive in. I put it on. I was going for a run and I was all pumped. Oh, here we go. I was like, this is good. Because, like, I think, like, the thing I was giving him slack on as a kid was that it was like that retro, but it was like, he's just knocking off this, he's knocking off that, knocking off this, and like as a kid you kind of hold that against him, but now I'm like, well, who cares if the songs are good? I'm a Ryan Adams fan, that's like all he does, but he writes good songs, so it's like if the song's good, who gives a shit if he's writing a Rolling Stones type song, if it's a good song, it's a good song, and Are You Gonna Go My Way is a good song, so like whether he's doing his knockoff Hendrix or whatever, it's like, all right, you win that one. And I was like, all right, next song. What do we got? And it was like, Believe. And I was kind of like, all right, I remember this one being a single, but it's like, just, didn't really.
Got to be.
Like, and all that, like, early 90s production is, like, all over. Everything was, like, some flange voices come in, and, like, it was just like, what? All right, so I kind of let that slide, and. But then I was like just kind of surprised how like not catchy, like all
really
the songs were just like in like plotting almost, maybe because it was like a lot
by
of
the time you get down to like
stuff.
the 10th, 11th song, you're just like, oh
my
god, it's like, just like you feel like, did we not just listen to this?
And I was like giving him like the get out of jail free pass card, like we were like, all right, this one sounds super like. I was surprised how many were like Beatlesy ripoffs. Like
I thought that too. Like there was several times listening to it that I was reminded of the Monkees because it sounds like someone trying to sound like someone. Yeah.
I mean, it was mostly like production stuff, and it was weird where they're trying to do like Strawberry Field type shit going on, but like. If the song's lame, then you got nothing. You can put all the thing on there, but it was like, and I think it was around that time I meant to look up the Beatles anthology stuff when they put out like those 2 new songs. It was like the Bird one, whatever the hell. I should know it off the top of my head.
You should know it. You should be embarrassed.
That's the one. It was like they took like an old John Lennon tape or something and put a bunch of reverb on it and shit more than normal. But I mean, it totally sounded like all these songs are just like this. And it comes in and it's like, but I mean, they almost work. But then I was just kind of like, it's just not.
It just gets like like it never really like peaks out at a point where like. Are You Gonna Go My Way? It's all like peak out, like it just pulls you in. You're like, let's,
it's just
it's very simple. Lyrically, it's very simple. I mean, none of them are like. And then there's like a whole lot of like sort of social awareness, like message type songs. And the songs are like very just sort of bland and blah, so they don't really add up to much.
I was shocked that Heaven Help was a single, like maybe like the 4th single or something. That one was the one that was like, where did his balls go? But like track 4, he came out like blazing with like, I go my way. It was just like, I mean, that really could have been
like
Backstreet
tight
Boy.
pants.
Yeah, because there's like the one before it. I was almost he's doing his Prince voice or something, which is fine too, But like, I liked his lower voice better as far as just preference. But then like Heaven Hell was like sounded like a fucking Backstreet Boy. He started talking about like a love journey and stuff. Just like, are you ready for love? And it was just like it sounded like if he did it, it would have been like a goddamn Backstreet Boys.
After the first song, like it's very rare. Like I think maybe "Come and Love Me," the third song. Mm-hmm. There is sort of like a drum intro.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, yeah. And then it's just like,
he's like,
he just poops all over. Yeah, you're like, oh man, yeah. You're like, oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then "Black Girl" is awesome for like a bad Smokey Robinson kind of song or something. But like that one, I'd want to put on a mix just for humor value. I think it's like "Black Girl, what you girl?" And just a few Sugar just gets ridiculous with the sexy jams, and the lyrics on a lot of them are just so bad. Like it works with like a rock song or something, but you can't have some like Marvin Gaye knockoff where you're just like, I want to tell you like caramel.
Yeah, there is one.
Sugar, caramel.
You're like,
and
come on, man.
Song is like long ass song. It's like Sister.
It's 7 minutes long.
And that's why I was thinking that your show must have been in a pavilion, because they have like this theory of like just the middle of the set pavilion shows. Like a lot of bands have, even like bands I love, like Lucinda Williams, I saw pavilion shows. There's always that one song where like the guitar just has like tons of like reverb. And there's just like everyone's just like, I'm gonna go get a $10 Bud Light now and like go piss, and then you like look at some couple fighting for a few more minutes, you find a seat, and then you're like, shit, this song is still going.
Like, Christ,
just like,
Jesus.
It sounded like that one actually almost probably had the most like personal lyrics or something where he's like, sister, I want to bring you back to America or some shit.
Why 7 minutes?
Yeah, it's a long trip from Europe or whatever.
I guess, man.
But yeah, and then he ends with a reggae song. He's like, I haven't done reggae yet. Let's rip that off.
I mean, in the vinyl edition bonus CD track listing.
Yeah, that confused me altogether. I was like,
there's
vinyl came with a CD?
You're like,
what?
There is a song called Lonely Rainbows.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a Muppet song.
I think I'm good not to hear that one.
You're like,
but I gave it an honest go. I could see it being a good show if he threw in his other hits.
I remember really enjoying it and thinking it was super fun. And of course, he didn't just play stuff in this album.
Yeah.
And, to this day, I mean,
It Ain't Over Till It's Over. That's a good song, even though that's a sappy. It ain't over till it's over.
Yeah. Like the good ones are pretty good. Yeah, but then there's just like a whole lot of just like bland oatmeal in the middle.
That's what I mean.
It's all the same.
It's all just like $10 Bud Light trips.
I remember like really enjoying it, but I think it's more just sort of like a first experience and sort of contextual of like bumping into other friends from 3 hours away and stuff like that, all kind of together, more so because listening back to it, it's just it's a tough listen.
It got you in there. It got you into live music there. That's
good. And I mean, he's a beautiful man. He's talented.
Yeah.
He should have his own talk show or something.
He's doing all right, I think. He's got Hunger Games and shit.
Yeah, he can pull off eyeliner, which a lot of people can't.
True. He's always a little more fashionable than musically talented.
Yeah. His mom was on the Jeffersons.
Oh.
As the neighbor.
He kind of seems like a dude that had like some famous parents.
Yeah.
I remember that being like maybe a reason why I never wanted to give him much credit was his going back to VH1 Behind the Music. Not that, but the big like Behind the Music when they do and coming up when it all hits rock bottom. He's like, and that's when I cut off my dreads. I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, what? That was how good.
There was so much negative energy.
Yeah, I just cut off my dreads and I knew stuff had gotten bad. I was just like, what? How the fuck is your life that good where cutting your hair was the low point of your Behind the Music? Like, by the low point for Chris Gaines, he had already had
he did a major car accident, reconstructive surgery. He fucking woke up looking like Garth Brooks.
He couldn't walk into an Arby's without having sex with a Big Montana. Dude, it's like, cutting his dreads, really?
He's like, man, when Lisa Bonet left me because I was unfaithful.
When my movie star beautiful girlfriend left me, I was like, oh yeah, well, let's be fucking
I was like, damn.
Yeah. I feel you, man.
He's like, that's a common man's journey, Lenny.
We'll see you next time around, Lenny. Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
All right.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
All right. Anyway, The Muppet Show.
It's time to start the music. Yes, The Muppet Show. Just one of those things. It seems like it's been with you as far as first loves, possibly.
I think, these next two are our first loves, so maybe a little more sentimental.
Yeah, I just feel like these little weird puppets have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and maybe they have been. Looking at the dates of these, The Muppet Show, The Muppets, it's very weird in the sense that anybody knows the history of it, where they recorded the pilot episodes and couldn't get it picked up in the U.S., and just shopped it around for a long time, and then eventually picked up in England and was like just a British show basically. And then they signed this really weird syndication deal that was really absurd at the time, but that's basically what it was. But it turned out to be genius because it became a success over there and everybody loved it, but then all these channels could pick it up and just air it whenever they wanted. So that's why it's really weird trying to figure out when the hell I actually saw it, because it started in 76, which is a year before I was born. Mm-hmm. And they did 5 seasons. So maybe by that 5th season, I remember being super young, but I remember having distinct memories of all the family getting together in the basement. It's quick, the Muppet Show is going to be on in a few minutes. Let's all watch the Muppet Show together. Numerous occasions where it was a regular thing, and we just loved it. And it was just, those characters were so buried in our heads, and probably the first movie at least, definitely the first 2 probably were out by that point. Mm-hmm. So, because I always technically, as big as Muppet fan as I am, love the movies more. I always kind of I'm the same way with Monty Python for some reason. I always like the movies more than the actual shows. That a lot of people will, diehard fans will stand by the shows more than the movies or whatever. But the shows are just these weird ass variety shows that totally get that vibe from late 70s into the 80s, because everything was a variety show back then apparently, and they would just do it up with some weird host that only your parents would know who they are half the time.
Yeah.
When you look at the full list of, everybody kind of knows the greatest hits versions of the hosts that were on there over those 5 seasons, but there was a lot of just people were who the hell is this? So and it was and they had trouble like booking people initially for like the first 2 seasons maybe, like just because everyone was like, I don't want to do this show with a bunch of damn puppets and stuff.
Weird.
And then it blew up enough where everybody was like really fighting. And great Jim Henson biography came out a few years back. I forget the guy's name, but I will put a link to it on the website. But anyone that's a Jim Henson fan or Muppet fan should read it. It's like a solid, pretty much the only like real solid biography written. And it really goes into all the cool details about the show and everything they were going through. But just how like well Jim Henson like treated all the guests too, and like word got out, and they're like, man, he treats everybody right. And it's just like this awesome like fun version of Saturday Night Live where they would just show up and he would just like give them the royal treatment for like a week or something, and they just filmed this weird ass show. And yeah, and it's really weird. Like I didn't even assign specific episodes. I just kind of, did you watch any in particular?
I watched the John Denver one you gave me the link to. I watched the one with Mark Hamill, and that was about it. And like just little bits and pieces.
That's funny that the Mark Hamill was like, because that's like the most obvious between you and me too. Or that was just like a huge pivotal thing as a kid too. Like the Star Wars episode was like
watching them. Like we watched it as kids, and I was aware of it as a kid. But it reminded me, watching the Mark Hamill one especially, and I knew who John Denver was, and I know who he was now, even though he's dead.
Maybe forgot who he was a few years in the middle.
maybe in the middle there for a bit. But it reminded me of just how, like, I can, even as a kid, I can remember, like, I always connected with the Muppets specifically, which is sort of the genius of the show for its appeal to kids. Like, because I knew who Mark Hamill was because he was Luke Skywalker, but he wasn't Luke Skywalker. He was Mark Hamill. I think he appears.
Yeah, he does both.
Yeah, he does both. But like even then, I was like, well, that's not really Star Wars. That's just
it's all
not
like
Star Wars.
super goofy.
Like, and it was people a lot of times who didn't even know who they were. So like I always connected with the Muppets. And, like, it could have just been, whether they were big stars or not, to me, just like extras, just like character actors. Like, I just didn't care.
And I think that's why it was weird, was because it was a human. It's just like the fact that they just throw, like, one human in there. Yeah, it's usually the guest was the only human on the
and they do, show. And, like the best ones, they do a good job of sort of playing off the Muppets or with the Muppets and seeing stuff. And the worst ones... You know, there are ones I'm sure where it's just like awkward and doesn't quite come together.
And it's weird too. I found like just loving them all. Like the one where you would think would be like, that's a match made in heaven. Not necessarily the best episodes. Like I always found like I mean, not a huge John Denver fan by any means. I don't have anything against the guy, but whatever. But at the same time, he was just like really paired well with them for some reason. He did like a couple side specials. They never had any reoccurring guests. Nobody did it twice, but like he was the only one that did like other stuff with them. He did like the Christmas album and stuff. But for some reason, that one always did. Maybe because like my dad liked him and stuff, so there was like a little bit more of attachment. But yeah, it's weird that like. The connection, even like the Steve Martin episode, you would think would be like fucking gold. Yeah, and that was good, but it wasn't like really one of the most hilarious ones. It was just kind of like, and then like a lot of people like Roger Miller, the country singer guy, and he's just like fucking drunk as shit. He's just like, whatever, man. Okay. You could tell he's like having fun, and it was cool. But you would just think like some of them would be like, oh, how could this go wrong? But like,
was Cher ever on?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I some reason remember I couldn't find it online real easily, but I remember watching it with Cher because for whatever reason I knew who Cher was. At the time.
And Elton John's a good one. That one's popped up a lot. And
I liked Elton John a lot as a kid. Yeah. Because I had the 45.
Yeah, he was so like just enough wacky but weird and cool in that era too.
And he looks like a grandma now.
Yeah, he looks kind of like a grandma then even.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But, they did like Crocodile Rock. I mean, like so many things are just like
Crocodile Rock.
I mean, so many of those things just like totally cater to it. It's just weird. Like I just love like even watching it now, as like an old ass man or whatever. I'm just like so fascinated by like.
I'm older than John Denver was. Yeah, when John Denver was on the Muppets.
I'm just like still amazed by like the puppetry and the I mean, it sounds just like obvious to say. It's like, oh yeah, of course they were great, but I mean, just like you just totally forget. Like, I mean, how like obvious it is to all of us. It's like, yeah, they're all fucking puppets or whatever, but
they
like
just seem like
you just start watching it and you just have to literally catch yourself and be like, oh, that's like a whole raised set and people under that, and like little vegetables are singing and there's like people operating all those
shit happening.
It had to have been like the weirdest thing.
The Swedish chef is like throwing shit all over the place.
It's like three people all like tangled up under you, and it's like, what the hell, It's like, and you really can't tell. Like I felt like the hosts that had like the best sense of humors and stuff because they're just like laughing through the whole thing, Just, you can tell having a great time with it. But it was such a weird blend of, again, old people humor and like kid stuff, because it is like usually like these super old songs, like not even just like old classic songs, but just like. I mean, just really obscure, weird old songs, and they do like these dances and like very traditional, like a variety show kind of thing. Yeah. That like even watching it now, I'm kind of like when they do like the musical numbers and stuff. A lot of times I'm going like, just cut to the funny Muppet stuff, like the pigs in space and stuff.
I love pigs in space.
Yeah, so it's like so many cool parodies, but weird puns and just like the humor level is so strangely Muppet humor,
and they've never really been able to replicate that. Yeah, like they just recently, it's 2017. They just recently had sort of another go at it.
Yeah, with the new Muppet Show. Yeah, where they did like The Office. And it had some funny parts, but
And there's always funny parts, but it's like, for whatever reason, like, and I think that they're still viable as characters.
Yeah, everyone loves them
properties
so much,
or whatever you want to call them. But like, I don't know that can you just do another Muppet show?
Yeah.
I don't know that it would work. There is a Lady Gaga Muppet special.
Yeah, I watched about half of it.
Yeah.
I didn't make it through the whole thing.
It was tough.
It was tough. But yeah, I mean, and it's weird. And I always had like fleeting moments, like now as I'm older and kind of see the history of things, I'm like, yeah, you should just leave it alone. But I always thought like totally update it where they did like, but just do it like with indie rock bands and stuff, and like totally cater to like just a cooler audience in a sense, like because I think they had like even different moments where they bring in like specials by doing it with Lady Gaga and stuff. They're trying to do like too many like mainstream artists and stuff, but they really should just kind of do it with like these cooler unknown bands, even though like nobody will want to watch that, but maybe it's like a web series or something. But I think that's why it's tough, is because so much work and thought has to go into the sets and the puppets and everything.
Or maybe it's just like a streaming, like a Netflix show or something.
Yeah,
maybe
something. I don't know what the...
As a network show where you're trying to appeal to a weekly audience, and it just doesn't seem to have...
how you can bring it back.
The 70s was a weird time.
Yeah.
I mean, like Carol Burnett was on, and...
Yeah.
There was... Yeah.
And just, I mean, it might have just been being captured in time, but I mean, that first comeback movie was really good. Second one was not so great, but it was still decent. But like, so I think the movies might be a good way to do it if you get a good story. I mean, it's always like tough because even like Great Muppet Caper and stuff didn't really have much like a solid story. It was just
weird. But like you have to somehow like sort of get the weird essence in there, and it's not just like giving Gonzo things to say that don't make any sense. There's like a definite weirdness to it, like very strange weirdness, and then just sort of like a wonder, like when Kermit the Frog is riding a bicycle,
right? Where they still take it to a new level,
where you can believe that it's real.
Right. Yeah. I still believe he's real.
Yeah, I mean, he is.
Fucking thing's riding a bike, man. There's no way.
There's no way. It's a guy.
I don't care how they explain it to me. There's no way you can do that. Even with CGI in it, that's like, that damn frog is real. But but yeah, I loved it. Of course, it's just those guys are all super talented, and there's no way to redo it. Maybe, I don't know. Like they tried like the crude, like do it not even crude humor, but with that latest show where they just did it a little more for mature audiences kind of thing, and it almost worked. There was definitely some funny jokes, but yeah, ultimately I think you got to find that balance between like something the kids can latch onto while still having adult jokes in there.
Like if you're just like, we're trying to get like the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings with people, or even just people our age who loved it before. Well, I mean, who are you appealing to?
Yeah, like I think that's why it's lost. It's just
kind of doomed before it starts,
right? Yeah. And you're just riding on the fact that it's Kermit,
Yeah.
And even though for me, I mean, I
did really like the Muppet Baby cartoon.
That worked somehow, and it didn't have any puppets in it. So
that's right.
They need to put those out, man.
I looked for them on YouTube recently because I thought my daughter would like them. But
crappy quality at best. And even, strangely enough, on topic of the Muppet Show, 5 seasons, they've only ever released the first 3 on DVD.
Why?
I don't know why the hell they're holding on to. Like
Brian Henson and his weird speaking voice.
He's got to be out. Well, Disney now. Disney
owns Disney.
So,
damn you.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought with like the movies and everything coming out, like why not just put them out and fix them up? Even the ones they released are kind of like not like really touched up or anything. They're kind of crappy quality.
I don't understand.
Like all the dumb crap people
like numbers or thought. Like it's not like this hasn't. It's not just Gavin and Craig.
Yeah,
in like Canton, North Carolina, who are like, oh, they should just release them.
Yeah, I mean, that's like goofy to talk. You ever heard of the Muppet Show? It's like, yeah, man.
Somebody somewhere has had this idea and they looked into it like,
yeah.
But why?
But somehow, like the 8th season of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I do adore, but
still out.
But I mean, well, do we really need
Salem the cat up to his usual
hijinks? Like how's that getting a Blu-ray release? But like the fucking Muppet Show, is it?
It's like what are they waiting for? It makes no sense.
I don't get it. It's so weird. Yes. Know who could save the day? The Avengers.
Yes.
They are making a comeback, I hear.
They are. They're pretty. They're doing all right.
They're doing good these days.
The Avengers. Speaking of first loves, I distinctly remember I'd kind of gotten into comics, and they kind of caught my attention, and I liked them. But it was around this time, like issue 270 or so of Avengers, where I really just that was what made it something that I would love for the rest of my life.
So that's done, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, how did you stumble? Was it just like the occasional, like every month get an ep, like a
yeah?
Or did you have a subscription at this point?
I had seen comics and stuff and read a few here and there, and it hadn't really really grabbed me. And I'd started reading West Coast Avengers, and that was I can still remember kind of picking up the first one of those and being like, oh man, this is cool. But it wasn't until West Coast Avengers is sort of a relatively short-lived series.
Because it's so hard for superheroes to travel from
across. Yeah,
we better just start up a whole West Coast sector.
But it was, and I was like, cool. There's this whole other Avengers comic book. I should read it. It's been around longer, and the artist at the time, his name was John Buscema, I think is the way you pronounce it, maybe Buscema. And he'd been doing comics for a long time, but I mean, the artwork is just beautiful. Like at that point, like he was just extremely fluid, and just the line and the form of the body and the page, it's just perfect in my opinion. And I mean, even if you don't care about the story, like just looking at the way he put those panels together and told that story in sequential form was just, I mean, it's perfect. Like no one can do it better. And he since has died, but I just loved it. And like this sort of run from like 274-ish through the early 280s, like the Avengers, their compound gets taken over by a villain, and in his group, the Master of Evil, it's destroyed, and then
had they come up under that title before? Or was it something they came up with?
They had, there had been previous, like the Master of Evil have sort of like cycled back through, and like there'll be like a new group, or like a group that's attached to the previous group, or like a whole new group using the name, and so that's come around over and over. And they all kind of established villains, because I felt like a lot of them were like introducing themselves as they were like kicking a wall down. Like the original Masters of Evil were all sort of like villains who they had fought in their own sort of just like individual comics, here and there. So. And that sort of stayed true throughout. So, like Baron Zemo, who later is in an Avengers movie. He's in one of the actual movies? There's a character called Zemo in Captain America Civil War. And he's a lot different, but, he's in there. And to rewatch that. Yeah, well, he's the mover and shaker in the movie. So feel free to come over to my house and watch it anytime. I should just not watch it totally drunk. Yes, maybe that might we could watch it at the beach sometime. But again, but I like it just, and then because he's the main bad dude in this batch, as far as I got anyway. Like I remember just thinking, man, this was so epic. The Masters of Evil took over the mansion and they destroyed it. I just had to fight to get it back. And then, bam, this next thing happens. And then, bam, this next thing happens. And then, bam, this next thing. Next thing you know, they're like an Olympus, fighting the Greek gods. And it's like they're taking this too far. And I just, at the time, as a kid, I was just like, this is just awesome. Were you getting them as they're coming out at that point? Yeah, at that point, I had a subscription. So. Oh man, I can't wait for April. Right, and I grew up in Kannapolis, North Carolina, sort of, and so there was no comic book store, and I wasn't, I didn't drive. I was 12, so I was I had to have a subscription. So and there was no internet, and Comic Scene magazine was about it if you wanted to know what was going on. So, it was always this, man, what is going to happen? It's not like today where you can, there's get online and, crap on Twitter and, pre-whatever, advertisements and stuff. It was, just a mystery every month. Like, what is going to happen next?
And even part of my bigger enjoyment, or not bigger, but like equally enjoyment of looking at the comics were the ads and I remember just like so burnt into my memory, even though my comic fandom was pretty short lived. It was like those subscription ads, where you could like barely read what it was, and you mark the little box with your X and pay whatever, and like. But yeah, it was great just like seeing those old weird ads and such.
For like bonkers candy, and Rubik's
like
cubes,
laser tag.
Yeah.
One of them had a Thrashing, the movie Thrashing, which is gonna get assigned at some point on the show.
Yeah.
Starring Josh Brolin and. Great movie, but yeah, it was a Thrashing.
Josh Brolin's going to be in an Avengers movie.
Really?
So, yeah.
What's he going to play?
He's going to play Thanos, the Mad Titan.
Whoa, was he in any of those?
He was not, but he was in a lot of
Mad
Avengers,
Titan.
like a little bit earlier and then later. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, there's a lot of characters I didn't recognize. And by like maybe the 5th or 4th one, they kind of did some flashbacks, and like this was like maybe the second round of not like necessarily Iron Man and stuff had already retired. Maybe this was like because like this batch of Avengers was like Hercules, Black Knight. What was his name?
Yeah, the Black Knight. Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, with the ebony blade.
Like a knight, like Excalibur.
Real dorky. Yeah, it's not Excalibur, but Merlin like put enchantments on this black blade that was forged from a meteor that fell to Earth. It can cut through anything.
Still Merlin,
but it's cursed. So if it cuts anything organic, which is say a person, if any blood touches the blade, then he will go mad with bloodlust.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, it means he runs around a lot.
And everything?
He just like smacks people with the flat of the sword a lot.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like
you weren't supposed to kill people. In
just rough them up. And Hercules and Captain Marvel, is that her name?
Yeah, Captain Marvel, later known as Photon. Later known as
she accepts the job to take over by the end. Wasp, who I know through the Ant-Man stuff.
Yeah. And, Wasp was like a good Avengers leader.
Yeah. She was too hard on herself.
She was too hard on herself.
Because the shit just crumbled, Nobody's really holding. Is Jarvis the dude that's like
Jarvis is the butler.
He's not like the dude that's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff, right? Like the little kind of normal dude that gets beat up and killed, sort of.
That's Coulson.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Jarvis is in the the Iron Man movies as an artificial intelligence that is in the suit that Tony Stark talks to.
Okay.
But in the comics, he's a guy.
Yeah, he's just like this little dude.
He's a butler. Yeah, he buttles.
Gets butlered up, man. So there's a lot of weird dudes that I didn't recognize, and then I got like Goliath. I guess he was the dude that roughed up Jarvis. Yeah, pretty bad. Druid, he was one that.
Yeah,
what's with that guy?
Lame.
They kill him off pretty quick.
A balding, fat
little monk or something.
Yeah,
he's a prankster.
Yeah,
Mr. She-Hulk on the beach.
Yeah, and he ends up kind of being a bad guy later.
Yeah, I can see that. He seems like a little prick.
He ends up kind of being a bad guy. He falls under the influence of like a Kang, a time traveler, and does bad junk, and then things happen. Yeah,
what a prick. Yeah, my spidey senses.
I think somebody kills him and sets him on fire in a trash can.
He seems like he's meant to be killed off.
But he lasted a surprisingly
long they
time.
Kept him around. Did as far as nerd questions too, like what's the deal with because Ant-Man ever officially an Avenger?
Ant-Man was one of the first Avengers in the first comic. So like the first Avengers series, like a lot of Team Comics at that time, were like a way to say, well, we'll put a whole bunch of characters who maybe people don't want to buy each of the individual books together into a book. So at that time, like the Hulk and Ant-Man / Giant Man and the Wasp shared a comic book called maybe Tales to Astonish, where like the first half of the book would be an Ant-Man story, the second half of the book would be a Hulk story, because neither one could really carry a book on their own at the time. And Captain America had his own book. Iron Man had his own book, where they just like collected them all together into a team and called it the Avengers.
Nice.
It's great. I love team
So
books.
yeah, it sounds
It's
like
great.
they're like the first round, and then these guys are the new generation, and then they kept kind of adding. What's it take to be a member though? Like how
just
tight
like
is this?
like you gotta you have to have superpowers of some sort, and then just like
Willing to be
randomly
around.
show up at the right time.
Okay, yeah.
and someone else be leading. Like, usually when the membership turns over, it's like She-Hulk's like, this is I can't go on with it right now, guys.
Yeah, that was like the most realistic part when they were like, after Wasp was like resigning, and they're like, we need to pick a new leader, and like, well, what about you, and Iron Man? And everyone's just like, well, my schedule's crazy right now. It just like seems like everybody's just like
I don't want to do
dodging it. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I got a lot going on. I got this like petting zoo, and like this, my kids got soccer.
I'm really booked right
I
now.
don't want to commit to anything.
Yeah, so and then you just got to be like the guy who has superpowers who's like there. They're like, hey, you did good on that one, kid.
Yeah.
You want to come in there? And he's like, yeah, I want to be an Avenger.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your card. You get a discount at Denny's, and
And for a long time, the in-story thing was if you were an Avenger, you could live at the mansion for free if you wanted, and you got a $1,000 a week stipend.
nice.
Which even today would be pretty good. So yeah,
There you go. The perks of battle.
Avengers membership.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Was that the first you got into Ant-Man then? Being a big Ant-Man fan?
Yeah. The first issue of a comic that I really got to was an Avengers West Coast comic, and it happened to just really feature Henry Pym, the guy who was Ant-Man, pretty prominently. And I remember, like, what I love about comics and loved about comics when I started reading them was, when you read through them, like, it's very apparent very quickly, like, there's this whole entire history that is preceded.
Yeah.
And in the comics are usually, there's always references to, so it would be like a little asterisk, and it'll be like, see issue 235. And like, that just fascinated me. And because he was in it and he was not a superhero at the time, there was this reference to Ant-Man, and there's a reference to Giant Man, there's a reference to Goliath, there's a reference to Yellow Jacket, and this one character had been all four of these different superheroes. And I just remember thinking, man, this dude is just, what is going on? This is awesome.
Clearly where it's at.
Yeah, so I just really loved that, and I dug it. It was like the ultimate expression of the thing I liked most about comics, and that got me into them and made me want. Like, to this day, I don't collect comics to have them because they're worth anything. I collect them just because, like, I want to, like, know this sort of fake history. So
does it keep going? Is it still going? I mean,
it is still going, but it has many times kind of been rebooted. In my opinion, like, what is worst about comics today is that it is all event based. So, like, they will have this big event that sort of changes the status quo of their entire line of comic books, and they'll cancel all the comics and start new ones where, this guy's not Spider-Man anymore, this guy's Spider-Man because the world changed because of the Cosmic Cube or whatever. And then that will last for a couple of years, and they'll be like, and now this new thing happened, it's this whole new event, and now the world's changed, and this guy's the thing, whatever, so so there's less of that kind of a history because it's constantly in some state of the next event is going to change the status quo to sort of spike sales or grab people's attention or whatever. But I think ultimately it kind of does the opposite of what you want it to do, because it becomes very difficult for people to follow. And I think people who really are attracted to it and want to be fans in the true sense of the word are attracted to that sort of history, which is why there are bazillions of podcasts and websites and things about just people who just love this stuff and know the history of it, that they keep blowing up over and over and over. So,
and then I guess throwing the movies on top of it where they tweak everything.
And that's like, I think people can kind of say, okay, well, the movies are their thing and the comics are their thing.
It's easy to pull apart.
And at Marvel, their movies are booming. They're doing very, very well, but their comic sales have been dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. Quite possibly because that's what they do. It's always like a new event, and like people are like, I don't recognize any of these characters.
Right.
And as soon as I do recognize them, you change them again.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's
and it's just a lot easier to watch. Someone throw
like you can commit
truck
like 2 hours
reading.
to a movie as opposed to book after book after book. And after you've invested months in however many dollars an issue, and then they're like, that's not what's happening now. I think like if you're the type of person who really loves it and is into it, at some level that feels like a betrayal, and you're just like, what the hell is this?
Right. Has anybody ever gone back to like the old storyline and just picked up like
they have
previously like 276?
Right, like periodically they'll do that. They're like, we're returning to the old numbering, and the status quo has been reset. But invariably, a couple of years later, they'll be like, and now it's all different again because the worlds have collided. So that's just it's just the way it is. So.
Oh well,
that's right.
I guess this might conclude our first episode ever.
I guess so.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
Just I mean, the format will sort of develop and change. If you've got ideas for segments or
for sure.
At some point, like we would love it if you would sort of write in. We'll give you the contact information at the end of the episodes. Write us in. It'd be great to have a letter section at the end, or if you think
we'll have a Facebook page. You can do a thread there.
Right.
For each episode, we'll have its own thread, and you can see us on Facebook, Instagram. We'll do an Instagram page. And
one of us
email
knows what Instagram
addresses. Gavin Connor, GavinConner @gmail.com if you just want a direct question, want to post anything.
And mine is C Shapley, CSHAPLEY @UNCA.edu.
There you go.
Because in my private life,
God.
I work for a major institution.
You're the dean?
I am the dean. The dean of comics.
Dean of comics and pop culture. Well, awesome. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Check out all the social media and drop us a line. And boy, you got some episodes ahead of you.
Let's hope it works out,
So
guys.
feel free to check back soon. We're going to make this bi-weekly, and we'll see you on the next one. How should we sign off?
Something dated.
Don't let it rest on the president's desk. Rock the house! See you next time.